Hey there, 6th grade. In this next video, we're going to take a look at how to solve one-step multiplication equations. Continuing on from addition and subtraction in the last video. Before we get into how to solve multiplication equations, I want to define a new vocabulary word that I'll be using quite often in class from here on out. And that's this word coefficient. Okay, when I refer to a coefficient, I'm talking about the number that a variable is multiplied by. So if you had the equation 3c equals 30, remember 3c means 3 times c. So 3 would be the coefficient in that equation. All right, when we're solving multiplication equations, we're going to use inverse operations, just like we did with addition and subtraction. The inverse of multiplication is division. So we use division to solve our multiplication equations, and we always divide by the coefficient. All right, so in number 1 down here, I have the equation 3x is equal to 15. My coefficient is 3, because again, 3 is being multiplied by the x, so that means I need to divide both sides by 3. When you're showing your division for solving the equations, you need to use the fraction bar. Okay, I don't want you using the old divide symbol for division on these equations. Okay, don't use that. Use a fraction bar. So we're going to do a fraction bar underneath our 3x to represent division, and show that we're dividing by 3. And then remember what we do on the left side of the equation, we have to do on the right side, so we'll also divide the 15 by 3. So it should look like this. Dividing by 3 on the left side is going to cancel out your 3's. Remember, 3 divided by 3 is 1. So that just leaves us with an x on the left side, and we bring down our equal sign, x equals, well, 15 divided by 3 we know is 5. So that tells us that x is equal to 5. Okay, now we'll check our answer. So take our original equation, 3x equals 15. And so now if we plug in a 5 for x, 3 times 5, we should get 15 equals 15. Okay, for number 2, we have the equation 8 equals 4y. This time my coefficient is 4, so I need to divide both the right side and the left side by 4. So when I do that, I get 8 divided by 4 is 2 on the left side, equals, my 4's cancel on the right side, so I'm left with y. So 2 is equal to y. Checking that, I need to substitute 2 back in for my y, so I have 8 equals 4 times 2, and that does come out to be true. All right, now let's look at what happens when your coefficient is a fraction. So number 3, I have the equation 1/2 a equals 14. Well, the same rule applies. We're going to divide by the coefficient, but when I try to write it with my fraction bar division symbol, it looks like this. Okay, it looks like dividing by 1/2, and so it's a fraction divided by another fraction, and that looks a little bit messy. So instead, we think about what does it mean to really divide by a fraction? Well, when we divide by fractions, remember, we're really multiplying by the reciprocals. Okay, remember we flip the one we're dividing by and we change our division to multiplication. So dividing by 1/2 is the same thing as multiplying by its reciprocal, which is 2 over 1. So that's really what I'm doing when I divide something by 1/2. So instead of writing for this problem a fraction bar and then a 1/2 underneath it, I'm instead going to just multiply this 1/2 on the left side by 2 over 1, which is just the whole number 2. And then remember what I do on the left side of my equation, I must also do on the right side. So that means I'm going to multiply the 14 by 2. Okay, so let's watch what happens when I multiply the left side by 2. I have 2 times 1/2. Well, 2 is the same thing as 2 over 1. When you take 2 over 1 times 1/2, your 2's cancel, and you just get 1. So we get a 1a, which is the same thing as a. Bring down our equal sign, a equals 14 times 2 is 28. So we get a equals 28 as our solution. When I go to check that, I have my equation 1/2 times 28 equals 14. Well, if I multiply 1/2 times 28, I do get half of 28 is 14, so that checks out. All right, let's look at number 4, and we're going to do the same thing. We have the equation 20 equals 2/3 c. Again, our coefficient is a fraction, so instead of dividing by the coefficient in this case, we're going to multiply by its reciprocal. Well, the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. So I'm going to multiply the right side of this equation by 3/2. And then I'll do the same thing to the left side. Multiply 20, which is really 20/1, by 3/2. So I bring down my equal sign. 3/2 times 20. We have a 2 and a 20 here that can cancel. So this becomes a 1, and this becomes a 10. So I get 3 times 10, which is 30, over 1 times 1. So this just becomes the whole number 30. Okay, and if you need to do your fraction multiplication off to the side, feel free to do that on these equations. On the right side, 2/3 and 3/2, we know they're just going to cancel each other out. Okay, so we're just left with a c on the right side. So c equals 30. Going to check that. I have 20 equals 2/3 times, again, c we believe to be 30. And when I multiply 2/3 times 30, my 3 and my 30 cancel, and I get 2 times 10, which is 20. So that checks out. All right, so the whole point of 3 and 4 is that when your coefficient is a fraction, the way we solve the equation is we multiply both sides of the equation by its reciprocal. So when the coefficient is a fraction, we multiply both sides by the reciprocal. When the coefficient is a whole number, we just divide by the coefficient. All right, going to the back side, we have a couple of word problems we'll take a look at. Number 5, it says the length of an object in feet is equal to 3 times its length in yards. And the length of a water slide is 48 feet, so we need to write and solve an equation to find the length of the water slide in yards. So we'll start with our let statements. And we're asked to find the length of the water slide. So we'll say let L equal length of slide. And now let's look at what the information that we're given. It says the length of an object in feet is equal to, okay, well we know the length of this object in feet. We're given that the length of the water slide is 48 feet, okay, right here. So the length of the object in feet is 48. Okay, it says 48 is equal to, so 48 equals 3 times its length in yards. So this would be 3 times L. Okay, so our equation for this is 48 equals 3L, because L represents the length of the water slide in yards, which I don't know. So to solve this equation now, I need to divide both sides by the coefficient. The coefficient is 3. 48 divided by 3 is going to be a 1, and then bring down my 8s. 3 into 18 is 6, so 48 divided by 3 is 16. So we get 16 equals, here my 3's cancel, so I just get 16 equals L. So for this we could say the length of the water slide is 16 yards. All right, and then for number 6, it says Vicente and some friends shared the cost of a package of blank CDs. The package cost $23.28, and each person contributed $5.82. How many people share the cost of the CDs? So for this one, we're asked to find the number of people. So we could say let P equal number of people. All right, and let's look at the information that we're given, okay? That we know that the entire package, the total cost, was $23.28. So $23.28 is our total, okay? We know each person contributed $5.82. Okay, so if one person only bought the package, then the total would have been $5.82 because that's what one person paid. If 2 people bought it, it would be $5.82 times 2. If 3 people did it, it would be times 3. Well, how many people bought the package? Well, we don't know. That's why we're using a variable P number of people. But we know that if each person paid $5.82, then it would be $5.82 times P. That would equal this $23.28. Okay. Each person paid this much times the number of people, P, is going to equal our total. So that's our equation. 23.28 equals 5.82P. We'll solve that by dividing both sides by the coefficient. $23.28 divided by 5.82, we get to use some good old-fashioned decimal division for that. Okay, remember we need to move our decimal 2 places to the right over here in our divisor, and then the same thing in our dividend. So our decimal is going to go over here. So I have 582 that I'm trying to take into 2,328. Well, let's use our estimation skills. 582 is a little bit less than 600. 2328 is a little bit less than 2400. I know 600 will go into 2400 4 times. Okay, so let's try a 4 and see if that works. So we need to take 4 now times 582. And again, we can do some scratch work here to the side. So 582 times 4 is in fact 2328 exactly. So that tells us that it's exactly 4 people that contributed to the cost of these CDs. So we could say 4 people shared the total cost. As always, if you have any questions over this video, be sure to jot those down and we'll discuss those the next time I see you. And until then, have a nice day. You're all wonderful people. Take care.